Hi, I'm Vivian Hua, the editor-in-chief of REDEFINE Magazine and a Seattle-based writer-director. Welcome to the Q&A for the special screening of Turning Red at the 10th Annual Seattle Asian American Film Festival. I'm thrilled today to be joined by Domee Shi, the director of the film you've all just seen, Turning Red, as well as the writer-director of the Oscar-winning animated short Bao. Hi, Domee.
Hey, how's it going?
It's good. How are you?
Good.
Cool. We're just going to jump right in. So
Let's do it.
starting off, can you tell us a little bit about your journey of working on Bao and now to Turning Red and how those two stories are connected for you?
Yeah. So, wow, Bao, I started working on like back in 2013, 2014, just as like a side project that I was kind of doing on my own, um, just to kind of like get out a lot of my creative frustrations and feelings throughout the day. I just kind of poured it into this little quirky story about an Asian mom adopting this little dumpling boy, and that eventually became something that I pitched to Pixar. Um, and I made Bao, but I still felt like there was more to kind of unpack in that mother-child relationship dynamic, especially between a mother and a daughter, because there's like that just seems way more complicated and juicy and emotional and dramatic. And when Pixar asked me to pitch some ideas for a feature film after Bao and after the success of Bao, Turning Red was one of the ideas. And out of the three ideas I pitched, all of them were coming of age stories revolving around girls. But this one was specifically the most I guess, personal, the most like roughly autobiographical, the most specific. And I think that's what Pixar was drawn to, was that in that specificity, there was this universality. There was this like universal story in just this kid, this girl who goes from having her life completely in control to suddenly undergoing big changes in her body and her emotions, and suddenly like realizing she's fighting with her mom all the time and she's feeling all these feelings. There's hair everywhere. So the Pixar really identified with that, and that's how they greenlit Turning Red. And that was in 2017. So it took 4 years to make that movie.
Awesome. Well, I'm guessing you didn't turn into a red panda yourself, but could you talk a little bit about how you personally connected to this story that you portrayed, and especially its rich portrayal of culture and identity and the intersections of that?
Yeah. I was definitely May, at that age. Like I went from being my mom's perfect little girl, and thinking that I had everything under control to having like no control whatsoever. I shot up a couple feet overnight. I started growing hair everywhere. And I was hungry all the time, and my emotions were all over the place. And and then I also started like fighting a lot with like my mom and my dad. And the inspiration for the movie just came from wanting to like understand what was going on during that time. And through exploring that time, I really wanted to like explore that universal phenomenon of puberty and adolescence and all the cringiness that comes with it through the very specific cultural lens of a Chinese Canadian girl in the early 2000s, because you just haven't seen that yet, like in media or in movies or a TV show. And when I was May's age, I so desperately wanted to see something, or to have a story or something to point me to just let me know that everything that I'm going through is like going to be okay. So that was kind of the inspiration behind wanting to make this movie, and to put my culture up on the big screen.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think covering themes of puberty is always difficult, but we definitely don't see Asian tween girls experiencing that on screen.
No.
I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about working with an all-female leadership team to craft this script and story, and how you remain sensitive to the topic and the culture.
Yeah, it was something that we never like like consciously set out to do, but when we were doing our interviews for and like casting roles in leadership, like it just happened that like all of the main leadership positions were filled by women. And I think that's also because like, and it's so awesome, and because like the leadership just has this firsthand experience of going through puberty at that age, and we just had this this like this well of stories and experiences and embarrassing awkward memories to draw from, like at all times during production, which was great. And there was this shorthand where we all understood the story we were all trying to tell and to support. And there's also this like this camaraderie and this feeling of like we should go bolder. Like we didn't second guess ourselves as much or think like, oh, is this too embarrassing? Is this going to be too uncomfortable? Because I think all of us have been there. We were almost goading each other on, like, yeah, no, put in more embarrassing stuff in there, like that, like that's the real good shit right there. Sorry, I don't know if I'm supposed to swear, but that was really, really like awesome. And I think that was because like that energy, that creative energy, was because all of us have at one point been awkward girls going through big changes, you know?
I mean, speaking of, yeah, awkward, embarrassing moments, do you have any favorite moments in the movie along those lines, or even things that didn't make the cut that you kind of wish like were in it?
Oh man. Oh, there was one that didn't make the cut that was really fun, that I always thought was super funny. It was from the very first version of the script where so May in this version has always had this secret crush on Devin, the boy at the convenience store. So she makes a Rice Krispie treat bust that is in the shape of his head, and she tries to present it to him as like an offering of I don't know, like love, and he just thinks she's very weird, and she just like gets rejected, and she sadly like walks away, and she like eats the bust that she made of his head and is crying and eating. And I always thought that was really, really funny and embarrassing. It never made the cut though.
I'd be flattered if someone made me a bust.
Right?
Yeah. Switching gears a little, I think the use of color really stands out in this film to build the world and build the mood. And obviously, like red also has like numerous aspects of significance. And I'm wondering if you could speak a bit to like the process behind these choices, any cultural choices or play on name, etc.
Yeah. So Rona Liu is our production designer, and I also worked with her on Bao. So she is just amazing, and a production designer is basically in charge of the entire look of the film, from the character designs to the set to the colors, the whole style. And I really trusted her in kind of creating this world through the eyes of May, and that was kind of our point of reference for stylizing the look of the movie. Everything was through May's eyes, and like all of the colors were like super pastel-y and colorful and fresh and young and vibrant, because that felt like May. And the whole animation style, like really pushing the expressions and the emotions and exaggerating facial features when May is feeling like a certain way, like all of that was to try to support, like May and communicate what she's feeling to the audience. And in terms of like all of the cultural specificity of May's family temple and her household, me and Rona, and the art team, the animation team, like we like went on several like research trips, and we visited temples like in SF Chinatown. We went to a couple in Northern California and like Marysville, north of Sacramento, and just like really talked to the locals who take care of these temples. And we just really loved how like grassroots a lot of these temples were, and the history behind them, and how people who came over like brought all the small possessions they could, and they just added little by little like pieces to the temple, and like took like customs from Taoism, from Buddhism, and kind of created their own little like customs and traditions. Like every temple has their own kind of set of customs, which we thought was really, really cool. Yeah, and we just made sure that we covered all our blind spots, because me and Rona are both Asian American, but both of us immigrated here like from China, and we aren't like directly from the Chinatown community. So it was important for us to like work with cultural consultants outside of the studio, just like a bunch of like amazing smart people who are from the community, people who studied Chinese religion and the history of Chinese Americans and Canadians. And we just wanted to make sure that, everything that we depicted on screen just felt authentic, and if it helped May and her family and her world just feel alive.
Yeah, was there anything that you learned from that process of learning about the history of Chinese Americans and Chinese Canadians that like really made an impact on you?
Oh yeah, so much. Just all of the crazy hardships that a lot of the early immigrants like went through. The Chinese Exclusion Act, all kinds of like crazy messed up stuff, and how they really persevered, and they really and just how close these communities are. Like when me and my parents immigrated to Canada, we'd go to Chinatown a lot, but it was foreign to my parents because they're from Sichuan. Like they're not from that area of China where most of the residents of Chinatowns are from. Like they're not from the South, but it was like the only little slice of like, it was the closest thing to home that my parents like and me like could find. So we really like started to like love like dim sum and Cantonese food and all that awesome stuff. But I didn't know about the history of like the people, or like that most of them like came from like Taisan and all that, like the specific like regional areas, or even the foods. So it was just really cool to be able to speak to people from the community. Also to like nerd out about the food too, because like in the movie we were able to like squeeze in a lot of Taiwanese specific dishes in the movie, like eel fried rice, and there's a bunch of other stuff in there too. So I'm really happy we were able to put that in there.
Yeah, that's great, especially because food is such a central part of the experience.
Yes.
I mean, what I love about it is that it does have so many of these elements of specific Chinese culture, but also there's like a universal story behind it all. And I'm wondering if you could speak to what you hope that audiences take away from this balance of like specificity and universality.
Yeah. I mean, hopefully with this movie, like and with other movies that are coming out now, we're redefining what the universal stories look like. And we're proving that like characters from different cultural backgrounds like can tell stories that resonate with global audiences, and that it's bankable, and it'll resonate, like even if Western audiences aren't familiar with a lot of the specific cultural details in the movie. Like they'll connect with the emotion and the universal themes, and hopefully with audiences watching Turning Red, they could like they can just feel encouraged to like embrace all of the messiness inside of themselves, inside of growing up, inside of their relationships with their parents, and just be okay with being a mess, which I think I kind of learned as I was making the movie too. Yeah, and then on a more like specific like cultural lens, like they can, I don't know, hopefully, I mean, for me, I would love for them to be more curious about this culture, or like different cultures and worlds that they're not familiar with, and like maybe they'll seek out those dishes that we put in the movie. They'll visit the Chinatowns in their cities, and they'll be more curious about that world. So yeah.
For yourself as a creator, what would you say are some of the biggest lessons you've learned along the way from doing Bao to Turning Red to maybe like as you move on to other things?
Some of the biggest lessons I've learned? Oh, so many. Yeah, I think it's like I mentioned before. One of the biggest lessons I learned about like making this is just to embrace the chaos and unpredictability of filmmaking,
Mhm.
and to not be so rigid in making films and stories, and just be open to surprises. I think like when I first started this film, I was very much like type A. I was very much like, okay, this is my one chance to prove myself. I have to get it right. I have to make sure I don't make any mistakes, that I like knock it out of the ballpark every single time we screen the movie. And I was so lucky to work with Lindsay Collins, my producer, who, she's definitely been around the block. She's produced so many films, and she's like, it's a marathon, not a sprint. This is going to take 4 years, and like take every small victory, but be okay with the film being broken for a long time, and be okay with showing your work rough. Just and be okay with like last minute changes, last minute notes. Just open yourself up to the unpredictability of filmmaking, and that was very hard for me to do because I'm very much a control freak. So yeah.
Well, that sounds like a great lesson. Last but not least, is there anything else you would like to add? Any fun anecdotes or anything?
Fun anecdotes on the movie? I mean, it was an incredible experience, being able to make this movie at Pixar, and but I definitely would not have predicted like making it mostly from home, and all of the challenges that came with that. It was still like we did it, and I'm so proud of the film and of the crew. It was really funny. It was like one point during the pandemic, and we were, we had to record scratch for May, and our actress Rosalie was like busy, and so I had to like grab my laptop and like a microphone and go into my closet and close the closet door, and amongst all the coats in the dark, I was recording lines for May. And I was thinking like, oh man, like I would have never expected to be in this situation when someone said like, you're going to direct a film for Pixar. And I'm just like in the dark screaming like, I hate you, Mom. And freaking out my neighbors. So that was an amazing and surreal experience.
That is beautiful. Thank you so much, Domee, for this conversation. And thank you everyone for tuning into Seattle Asian American Film Festival. Other programs are available through March 13th. And Turning Red will be available to stream on Disney Plus beginning on March 11th. So thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.